Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today we're here with Juliana, all the way from Sao Paulo. How are you, Juliana?
Hi, Ole. Well, happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. I'm very happy to share more about my professional career, my experiences, and let's get to it.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure having you here. And for those that are tuning in today, we're going to talk with Juliana a little bit about her experiences, her journey, her passion for communication in the sport industry. And of course, if you are interested in learning more key tips, every week from key leaders like Juliana, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get video interviews every week. So, I mean, like Juliana, when you were a student, I guess it would be nice to have like just that weekly input from like leaders and people in the sport industry, just like sharing their tips, their advice, what they're doing, and helping you explore your minds.
Absolutely. I think that when you're a student, you're always trying to look for the better opportunities. Oops.
Sorry about that.
You're always no, don't worry. I thought it was me, and then I was panicking for a second. No, yeah, but like I was saying, it's always good to have these tips and these instructions, because sometimes you wanna get somewhere, but you don't know how to, and obviously talking to the people who are already working in the industry can always be very enlightening for all the plans that we have.
Right, no, for sure. And I mean, like, I guess we just have to dive into your journey. And like, why don't you just take us a little bit back to like, how did your journey in the sport industry begin?
Well, Ole, that goes from my childhood, actually. Ever since I was a kid, I was always interested in working in sports, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because my dad, he's a sports journalist here in Brazil.
Mm,
He used to work for the biggest TV station here, and he worked there for what, more than 30 years.
right.
Um, yeah, so ever since I was born, I was always somehow in this industry, somehow seeing what was happening, and it would always fascinate me to see uh, all the things that people were doing in sports,
Yeah.
especially the backstage. Every time I would get the chance to go to the sports events and see what people were doing behind the scenes and how the organization was going, from all the standpoints. Of course, as having my dad as a sports journalist, I would always see from the media perspective, but
Yeah.
as I was growing up, I would get the chance of going to all sorts of different events. So I have watched live pretty much every event that ever happened here in Brazil. It can be from volleyball, from football, of course, because it's the most important sport for us here. But volleyball, basketball, futsal, stock car, which is similar to NASCAR
Mm,
for people who are not familiarized. Yes,
yeah.
Formula One, all sorts of things, and all of them would fascinate me.
Right.
Like I said, from all the different standpoints.
Yeah.
So that's where my passion began. I was always involved with all this, and when I needed to decide what I was going to do for after school and all that, and then I was like, I want to be a journalist. My
Mm,
plan was to go the same path that my dad did,
right.
as a sports journalist. But then I had the opportunity of working in the Olympic Games in Rio, and
Nice.
also I was taking an internship in a communication agency.
Mm,
So when I combine the two things, the communication agency and the Olympic Games, I got in touch with the communication side of sports that is not connected to the media. Is more connected, to press office and
yeah.
public relations and all that. So that made me fall in love even more for sports.
Yeah.
And that's where my journey really begins, actively working in sports.
That's awesome. And I mean, like, so fortunate as well to be able to like follow your dad's footsteps in a sense, like from an early kid, just like, getting inside behind the scenes. And I mean, like, it explains a lot, why your, I guess, passion for communication in general is so high, and utilizing that. And again, like, just exploring the different kind of options that were in sports communication. But and that kind of like leads me though, because we talk a lot about, communication here, but at the same time, like, last summer you graduated with an MA in sport ethics and integrity. So that's kind of like a completely different side of the industry. So I guess you have to talk a little bit about that, but also at the same time, in a sense, like in I guess like complete package of like from 6 different European universities. So I guess like you have to explain a little bit how that worked. And also, yeah, how was sort of like your experience just being part of all these different kind of universities across Europe? And again, why this sort of like, I guess, shift into ethics and sports integrity?
Yes, yes. Well, like I said, when I was in university, my bachelor's degree is in journalism. So when I graduated, I was very happy with everything that I learned, but I felt that I needed something that really would direct me to the sport industry, because journalism, you can work in any field.
Sure.
I could be in finance, I could be in the medical area, I could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Much like all my friends in uni, I think I have only one friend who actually is working in sports. All the others
Mm.
are in fashion industry and all that. So I needed something that would really put me in the sport industry.
Yep.
So that's where it all began. And to be honest with you, when I was looking at the possibility of continuing my studies, I was actually thinking of sports marketing.
Mm.
I thought it would be a good idea, to go to a master's program in sports marketing and really establishing myself in the sport industry.
Yeah.
But what happened is that as I was looking for the programs online, I found this one, the sports ethics and integrity. And it really gets your attention when you see that you're going to be traveling around for 2 years.
Right.
So that was definitely something that really caught my attention. I was amazed by the idea of living in so many places and getting in touch with so many cultures.
Mm.
So that's when I decided to apply for the program, and also because, of course, as you said, there was a shift, and I was looking at trying to look at the more ethical side of sports.
Great.
This was in 2017, so I don't think I need to explain to the public here what happened in 2015 with the FIFA gate. And after that whole
Something.
episode,
Something
that
special.
whole story, yeah, the situation, really caught our attention. The
Yeah.
people who love sports, we always feel really sad when we see these things happening with sports. So
I was
after
surprised,
that
but
whole,
very disappointing, of course.
exactly, that's exactly how I feel. For example, right now we're going through something similar with the Brazilian Football Federation.
Mm.
Yeah, so when you see these people that they don't are genuinely in love with sports, and they don't genuinely want to make sports as a tool for growth and for peace development. There are so many things you can do with sports.
Yeah.
So this is what was happening back then. In 2015 we have the FIFA gate, and then this program is actually a response to that
Mm.
situation.
Right.
The idea of really studying ethics and integrity goes along with fighting all these issues that we have in the industry.
Right.
And that really caught my attention too, because I had never seen anything like that before, and it really goes well with one another passion that I have, which is social responsibility. I
Yep.
usually say, in my cover letter when I am applying for a job, I usually say I have three passions, which is sport, of course, communication, and social responsibility. These are the three things that really move me.
Nice.
So this program, it would really fit with two of these things, which is social responsibility and in sports.
Yep. Yep.
um, so that's when I decided to engage in the master program, and I applied, and it's very interesting for the people who want to go deeper and study more about ethics in sports and integrity. I always recommend this, and one thing that really gets your attention is the fact that it's provided by Erasmus Plus.
Yeah.
So you have the option of getting a full scholarship, which can always it's always interesting to study and still get paid for that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so that's when I applied and I enrolled in the master's program. And I mean, the whole experience is as good as it sounds. I lived in 5 different countries
Yeah.
in these two years. I started in the UK, in Swansea.
Nice.
And then I moved to Prague, and then after that I lived for about 3 months in Switzerland.
Mm.
But in Switzerland, it was not directly connected to the program. I could find a internship there.
Mm.
So that's when I moved there and lived for 3 months. Then after that, I moved to Barcelona, and I was there for a year. But then right after that, the whole pandemic situation happened and the lockdown.
Right.
So I was stuck in Barcelona for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then after that, I still had the opportunity of going to Italy. So yeah, it was amazing. I don't think I have the words to describe how great it was, because definitely seeing all these cities and living there, which is always different than just
Right.
going as a tourist. You get
Very.
to see how people really live and how things work
Yeah.
in the city. Yes. um so this from the standpoint of the cities, but also there was something that it's really incredible about this program, is that we were a group of around like 20-25 people,
Mm.
and we had like, I think, like 18 different nationalities. Learning from all the size that I could get. I was learning something. It was either from living abroad, living in a different city every 6 months, and then living with people from these different places all over the world.
Right.
It was the whole experience was very enriching for my professional and personal life. I was learning so much about culture, about the way people live and all that.
Yep.
So yeah, the whole experience was really amazing.
Well, I can imagine, and I mean, like, I think one of the things that struck me from this, from your thoughts here as well, was sort of like capitalizing on sports ethics and integrity at that early stage. I mean, like, obviously you said, like, this program came, as a result of what was happening, in 2015, but being smart enough, I guess, as well, to kind of like just jump on that early, because of course, like, if you look at sort of like, you know it takes time, like, and especially in sports too, of like just making sure that these procedures, all this, integrity and ethics and the regulations are coming into place, in sports. So you sort of like started mapping out like what essentially, the future the trends in the sports will look like. And that's, I mean, like, it's a very challenging thing to kind of like grasp, but at the same time a very unique experience. And I think, you know from a student experience as well, is combining that with exploring all these different cities and exploring all these different culture. It gives you also like a very complete picture of what sports ethics and integrity really is, because it's about getting people together and helping each other and making sure that the industry is moving forward within the right kind of frameworks and regulations. So it's a way of also like exploring those cultures and measurements that are needed. So I think that's a really fascinating approach and journey that you've been part of. And I guess, like, for young people out there now that are sort of like, what are some of the things that they should focus on, and if they are of course like passionate about and they want to explore a little bit, like, it's good that there are programs like this that could help you not only of course like exploring a very interesting topic, but at the same time explore different kind of cities and cultures to help you understand different kind of people. Because I mean, like, it's I say it all the time, like, US, it's one world, Nordics are one world, it's different kind of rules and regulations, and people have their ways of doing things. So understanding how people are and helping understanding the cultures, like, it's going to help you wherever you go in sports. And I think it's very important in sports as well, because it's so global and so connected. So I think that's a very very key element moving forward for any young people out there.
Absolutely. When this is also interesting, when you mentioned that going to that direction already so early. The thing with studying this master's program for me, I think I used to think that before going to the program, but now I think even more that I am out of it, is that I really do believe that everyone should try to engage in something like that, because it doesn't matter what's your profession. If you're in communication, if you're a lawyer, if you're an engineer, in every aspect, in every area of the sport industry, you get to deal with ethical problems.
Right.
And the program is not here to tell you what is right and what is wrong, but it's really here to tell you how can you process that
Right.
information, and what are the things that you should take into consideration, and when you're deciding on doing something. And this is something that is also present in the group. I think it was only me and maybe another 2 or 3 girls who were in communications. But out of the 20 people, we had people from that were lawyers. We had people that were in sociology. We had I even had a friend who studied religion as his background. So the backgrounds are really diverse.
Yeah.
um and I think this is really important, because as you said, it also helps you to get to know the different cultures and the different perspectives, because you really need to take all that into consideration when you're dealing with an ethical problem. For example, one of the discussions that I see very frequently are the ones related to for example, the women's situation in the Middle East. Of course, if you're looking at it from my perspective, for example, or your perspective, we will get one thing. But when you're there, when you speak to people from that region, and they explain you their point of view, there are things you need to understand, that's where they come from, and
Right.
also that there are ways of dealing with everything. You cannot just come from the outside and go there and impose your opinion and your ideas and all that. You
Yeah.
really need
Yeah.
to be respectful to
Right.
everyone's um opinions and the way of living.
Yeah.
So the program really helps you with that, and is very interesting from that standpoint too, because you need to you don't have any other option. You are living with these different people, and the different cultures, and the different professions, in the different places, in different situations. So you really you're put to test, to
Yeah.
see how you would deal with things. Yeah, and the program also, I think it's always very important to tell people that are interested in enrolling in it, is that it's a program that it's also very academic focus.
Mm.
So you, like I said, it really helps you to think.
Right.
We have a whole semester on philosophy of sport, for example, which
Right.
is basically thinking. It's philosophy.
Right.
Yeah, that's where what you're encouraged to do.
It's
So
for
you're
those
not.
thinkers, analytical
I'm
people.
sorry.
It's for those analytical people. Those are learning
Exactly.
a lot.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. But I was always very fond of this idea of when I was in journalism, for example, the school that I chose to go to here in Brazil is also the founded in this idea that for the first 2 years we were studying very much the theories, the having discussions and all that, and then for the 2 years we were putting into practice, because
Mhm.
I really believe in creating your foundations and building that foundation,
Absolutely.
so you can move forward and put that all into practice. So this program also helps you to do that quite a lot. When you go to all this kind of discussions, you have a homophobia in sports, you have the transgender issue in sports. People want to talk about it, but what are the rules? What
Mm.
are the theories? How do you define all that?
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to enroll in these discussions, and try to get your arguments as strong as possible for
Right.
this kind of situation.
No, and it's like you said, like at the end of the day, it's like having that solid foundation, with everything you're doing.
Yeah,
If you don't have that, you can't back up your arguments, and you can't back up, what
exactly.
your ideas and your thoughts. I mean, like we talk about it every time, as well as a startup. I mean, like our foundation is everything. Like people can
Hmm.
say what they want, but we know that we did our solid foundation, and that's what makes
Yeah.
us showing the results that we're having now. So it's very important, like in life, in what you're doing, is like build a solid foundation. But I want to go a little bit back, to your Rio experience with the Olympics, just a little taste of that. And you kind of like worked as a trilingual personal assistant, which, I mean, like, I guess you got to explain a little bit more about it. What key lessons did you essentially learn from, I guess, being part of such a major events such as the Olympics? I mean, like, it's the biggest, so it's something to work and I guess, like, as well, working so close with different cultures, because as a trilingual personal assistant, you work closely with a different kind of, not the Brazilians per se, but a different kind of culture and
Yeah.
country. So how was sort of like that experience, and what were some of the key lessons?
Well, I think when I look back at all these experiences that I had, without noticing, they all it's almost like they are complementing
Mm.
each other. So we
Right.
were just speaking about the master's program, which was very theoretical, and I was thinking a lot about in well, like I said, in theory, what would you do in theory? And the Olympics is the opposite. The Olympics is when you put all that into practice.
Right.
So when you're really dealing with everyone in a big event like that, when you don't have a lot of time, to think, what should I do? How should I deal with this? Many of the decisions you take, it has to be very quick.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely the biggest learning that I had in the Olympics was to develop this. Um, I think I can say to make decisions very quickly,
Hmm.
but also responsibly. because you are affecting a lot of people when you're doing that.
Yep.
The Olympics, you're definitely leading with very different people. That you have people there who are passionate about sports, the ones that aren't, the ones that really see that as a dream, the ones that see that as a boring job.
Mm,
You get to see it all. You get
right.
to interact with very different people and very different perspectives.
Yeah.
And having all that here in Rio, which it's not a secret that the IOC had its challenges to
Yeah.
make the event happen. But at the end of the day, at least from my perspective, it was a really good event. I was very happy to participate in it. But yeah, like I said, I think it's the practical side of all the things we're saying in theory.
Yeah, like mixing that, hands-on experience with like the academic reflection, like it's the balance.
Exactly.
Has to be.
Exactly.
But speaking a little bit about communication, of course, and I guess like, um you speak a lot of languages, five to be more specific, which is super impressive, incredible that you're able to do that. I think most people now is sort of like, two, three languages, maybe three, like if they're doing it. I'm showing in like Swedish and Danish just because it's so similar. So I'm just like, yeah, I'll speak that too. It's kind of like a thing here in the Nordic. It's kind of similar. Besides like Finnish and Icelandic, that's like completely different. We don't understand what's
Oh,
going
really? Oh, I
on.
didn't know that.
It's like the lesson is that if so Norwegians we can talk very well with the Swedish because it kind of like sounds the same, but we don't really understand when
Uh-huh.
we're writing it. While the Danish, it's harder to
Mhm.
understand when we're listening, but it's easier to understand when they're writing. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
But anyways, so
Yeah.
obviously speaking five different languages, I guess like what kind of tips do you have for anyone that sort of like want to add additional languages to their vocabulary? Because obviously it's super important in today's
Yeah.
sport industry. I mean, like, I know we have countries and partners in 11 countries. It's like having somebody knowing that language or someone it's always helpful.
Yeah.
So like what kind of tips do you have?
Well, to start off my answer here, I have to say that it really sounds amazing when you say I speak five languages, because to be honest with you, the situation is similar as to yours.
Right.
I do speak all them five, but
Right.
the thing is that four out of them, they are very similar. Like you
Right.
were saying with the situation there with Swedish and the other languages.
Yeah.
Um, because they're Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Italian. They are all Latin based.
Mm,
Once you learn one of them, all the
right.
others they are easier to learn, because when you get the foundation and how the language works basically,
Right.
and then the others just come right after that.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I don't want to people to think like, oh my god, she's a genius and all
No,
that.
but you're saying something
I
really smart here though, which I think is like it's like the languages that you learn is sort of like based on like, okay, so like think about it, like as you said, like your main language is Brazilian Portuguese, like Portuguese, Brazilian,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. I don't know what do you guys call it, but anyway, so like
We
obviously
call it Portuguese.
so I mean, like that's obviously very similar to like Portuguese, Portugal, Portuguese, and
From
then of
Portugal,
course
yes.
Danish, Spanish, and like you said, it's like what is your main languages and what kind of other
Yeah.
countries are speaking languages that are kind of like in that same, I guess, like initial framework, because that's
Yeah.
gonna help you, elevate on that. And I think that's a very clever thing. So like again, as you said,
Yeah.
like well, if you learned like we talk a lot about this in Norway. It's like German, so the
Mm-hmm.
Deutsch. So like German is kind of similar to like how the Norwegian language is structured. So hence it's easier for
Mm-hmm.
us to learn German.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a thing like that. And of course, like I speak a little bit of German, but not like, something I want to talk about. But but yeah, it's kind of like building upon that, smart structure of like, okay, what languages do you speak, that kind of like the ones that you're adding maybe first to your vocabulary is the ones that
Yeah.
are similar to the ones that you already know really well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's where I started. Of course, English is the one language that nowadays everyone needs to know.
Yeah.
Look at us here. Like I speak Portuguese, you speak Norwegian, but we're speaking in English.
Right.
So this is the language that I always tell people, if you have to focus on one, go for English, because that's the one that will really help you in the industry. And it's that doesn't apply only to the sport industry. It goes for pretty much all the other industries. Of course, French is very important in some industry, German, but I think that that English is kind of universal
Yeah.
on that. So that's the one that I always recommend people to really focus on.
Mm.
And regarding the tips that you were mentioning earlier, I think that um, nowadays we are very, very lucky to have all the possibilities that we have to learn new languages.
Right.
One of the things that I do the most is, Netflix. I will not lie.
Yeah.
I will not try to pretend here that I am super studying everything. Netflix is very helpful to me
Right.
because I think that for me, and I say that from my personal perspective, learning is not that hard. The problem is keeping it,
Mm.
because you can learn, like you can, for example, you hire a teacher. You can take like what I did with Italian when I was living in Italy. I
Mm.
hired this teacher, and I had like for 6 weeks, I think I had classes like maybe 2 or 3 times per week.
Mm.
So I'm sorry.
No.
The language, the learning path there was very, very quick.
Mm.
But then to keep that, it's what is challenging for me now.
Right.
So what I always do, I go on Netflix, I tune in the TV shows, the movies. The TV shows are the ones that I really recommend, because then you have a continuity. The movies, you watch it and then it's done. But with the TV shows, you watch it and then you can put the subtitles in the language that you're already listening to. So, for example, for the Italian TV shows, I have the subtitles also in Italian. So you're listening and you're reading at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is very helpful
Yeah.
for French specifically, because for me, from all these languages, French is the most difficult one.
Mm.
The fact that you have so many, I always joke about this, that you have so many letters that you don't pronounce it, and I'm always like, why do you have them in there anyway? um, so reading a lot in French, it really helps you with that. So my main tip would be that
Mm.
to look for things that you enjoy, but
Yeah.
then try to do them in the language that you're trying to learn. I love watching the TV shows and the movies. So for me, it's not, I don't feel like I'm studying. I really feel that I'm just, watching something, but then I'm
Yeah.
watching it in the language that I want to learn. And just to finish my answer here, I just want to add something that I always tell people about it when they come to me with that question, like, how do you do that? How do you speak so many languages? Aren't you shy and all that? And I always say, like, of course I'm shy. The first times that I would speak in English to people, or Spanish, I remember very well when the first times that I had to interview people in Spanish.
Yeah.
I would get, so nervous. The adrenaline would come and I would be sweating. I would be blushing.
Yeah.
And it was very obvious that I was nervous. But
Right.
I think that what you always have to have in mind, and I say that as someone who works with communication, is that if you're delivering the message, that's the main important thing. So if you're concerned with um choosing the exact right word to say something, saying that sentence grammatically perfect and
Right.
all that, that's not necessary in many cases. Especially if you're having a small talk, if you're
Yeah.
just dealing with something quickly, you don't need to say everything perfectly. You need the person to understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
If the person gets the message, if the person understands what you're
Right.
saying, your job here is done. Of course, you can always improve, you
Sure.
can
Sure.
always learn more,
Yeah.
but don't get stuck on that idea that no, I can only say that I speak Spanish if I'm speaking, a C1 level
Yeah. Yeah.
Spanish and I understand everything. No, if you're there, a B1, you're already good. You can already have a conversation with someone,
Yeah.
so you can already go out there and speak to people, and of course when you're speaking to people, your mind will kind of be paying attention to what the person is saying, so you will learn
Mm.
as you're speaking, because practice at the end of the day is always the
Right.
best teacher for this. So yeah, that's my main tip. Like, don't get stuck on the details, on speaking perfectly.
Well, I mean, like, I think also is that people really appreciate effort and the fact that you're,
Mm-hmm.
trying. Like, it means so
Exactly.
much, like, even if you don't say like
Exactly.
100% right or like whatever it is, it's just like the fact that you took the time to learn and
Yeah.
like try to do it, like that just says so much, because
Yeah.
nobody really cares if it's like 100% right, or like if like
Yeah.
have like some wrong words or like whatever it is in there, like if they get, like as you said, like if you can kind of like people get what you're saying,
Yeah.
then people really appreciate that you're trying,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's at the end of the day is like, if like somebody here like came and like they try speaking Norwegian to me, like of course I would be super happy. I was like, I'm really glad you're trying, like I want to help you, like,
Yeah.
and I think like effort is like what is really important with language, and the fact that you're trying, like people really appreciate that, especially when you're going to new countries, and like
Yes.
doesn't have to be like you're visiting or whatever, but like just those small things, like it can come a long way. Like when I'm traveling as well, like I try to do like the initial, there's like the basic stuff in like whatever language that is. Sometimes
Yeah.
of course like they speak back in like Spanish or French or whatever, and I'm kind of like I'm done. I don't know what,
Yes.
but it's sort of like that appreciating that you're there, respect
Yeah.
your culture, and again, that's kind of like, I guess, sport ethics and integrity, like sports ethics, learning, and being
Yeah.
part of that
Yeah.
community. But
Yeah. Just before we move forward, I just want to add something here, because all you're saying here really reminded me of something. When I was back in 2014, I lived in France for a month. I was in
yeah,
an exchange program,
right,
and then I have this image in my mind very clearly of the first day that I went out with friends, and we were in a restaurant, and the waiter came, and I told him in French, I said like, hello, I don't speak French very well, I'm here to learn, so please tell me, would you rather that I speak in English, because it will be faster?
sure,
And then he said like, no, you're here to learn French, you're going to speak French with me.
right,
And then I said like, okay, but this will take some time. And then he said, that's okay, I have time. So then I ordered and I did everything in French,
awesome,
and he was super happy. I was very happy as well, because I was there to
yeah,
learn, and I think that that's the behavior we should have. You know, we're always learning,
Yeah.
so you don't have to get there and already be like perfect. You know, if you don't feel confident enough, you can say like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I am here to learn." So if you're okay with it, I will keep speaking the language. And like you said, when people see the effort, they are very patient with you.
Yeah.
This is something that I learned. They're very, very patient. They are willing to teach you the best words to
Right.
use and understand what you're really trying to say. So I think that people should always have that in mind. And my maxim here is, if the message is delivered, your job is done. That's what I always
100%.
have in mind.
So I
Yeah.
guess like we're about to sort of like wrap up here, and I guess like if you wanted to like comply all the stuff that we talked about through this conversation, and if you wanted to like provide like I guess like some tips, like some few key tips for any student out there that are trying to find their path in the industry, exploring their options now, and maybe don't know exactly where they're going, like what kind of like tips would you have for them?
Well, I think that one of the things that I learned very well in the experiences that I had is to always kind of self-assess what you're
Mhm.
doing. And what I mean by that is, for example, when I worked as a press officer in public relations, I was always trying to pay attention to the things that I would do, and it wouldn't be that hard for me to do, because that's when you find out what are your strengths. And also, of course, always pay attention to the feedback that people have for you, because that's when you find out what you're best at and what you're not so good at. And I think that if you're struggling with that, there's always the option of, for example, going on mentoring programs, or professional orientation and things like that. And I will take the time here to even kind of promote the one that I am involved with
Sure.
at Leadership Woman Football, which is where I work as a communication manager nowadays. um, we have the mentoring. We offer the mentoring program and the orientation as well, which we call development program.
Hmm.
And they are focused on that. They are focused on helping people to develop as a professional. So I guess then most of the people here, they are students, so the development program is more appropriate, because you really learn the key things that you need to help you in the sport industry. For example, networking, which is something
Hmm.
that we didn't mention that much in the interview, but networking is always key, is always very, very important
Right.
when you're in the industry. And this goes, of course, like I keep saying, these things are interchangeable. You can use that in a sport industry, you can use that in any other area.
Yeah.
uh, and networking is one of these things. You always need to be connected with people. People need to know what you're up to, what are the things that you love, what are the things that you're willing to work with, because this is how you move in the industry.
Right.
And the development program, for example, helps you a lot with that. And for the people who are listening, who are more senior in the industry, they already have their 5 years of experience working in the sport industry. The mentoring program is very, very interesting to develop the leadership skills, the
Right.
the things that we are always talking about. Like to be a leader, you don't need to have a team. You can be the leader of yourself, of what you're doing.
Right.
So that's always very helpful. And the just one thing that I wanted to add to the networking point. Here I have to congratulate you and Eduardo for the work that you guys have been doing in Sporting Global, because you guys are providing that opportunity for people to connect, to really show, in their profiles there in the platform, what are their passions, what are their mission, their goals, and what they want to do in life, and then all the others can see that. And it's always helpful for when you think of a project, you think of something, and you're like, oh yeah, I do know someone who's already interested in that, and of
Right.
course, if the person already has the interest in doing something, it always makes everything easier. So yeah, so my main tips here are, look for this mentoring programs, the development programs, the ones that will help you to develop as a professional.
Yep.
And have your profile in Sporting Global to connect with
Not
everyone else.
sponsored content, just
you can pay me later.
Well, Juliana, I would like to thank you so much for the advice, for the tips, for your story. It's a lot of interesting stuff there. I think we can talk for a long time about a lot of different things. We just barely scratched the surface. We might have to, dig deeper into the whole sports ethics and integrity down the road. But yeah, like I said, Juliana, thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your story, taking the time. And like I said, for those of you that have been sitting here and listening to this awesome conversation all the way to the end, make sure to like the video, maybe write a comment about, your favorite highlight, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We would really appreciate it. And like you said, you'll get some key tips every week. And then we have some additional fun content as well coming up in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. And Juliana, since you're such, what can I say, novice, passionate about communication and language, I'm going to learn you some Norwegian at the end.
I would love that. I would love that. Yeah, but Ale, I want to thank you. Thank Sporting Global, Eduardo, you for giving me this opportunity of sharing a bit more about my life and the things that I learned in my short career. I think that I did have amazing experiences that really taught me a lot. So thank you for inviting me, and it was a pleasure to share with the audience more about everything that I learned.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we will wrap up with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian.
How is that?
Vi snakkes.
Vi snakkes.
There you go. Nice job.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Juliana. We'll talk very soon.
Bye bye. Thank you.